Hi, welcome everyone to Veterans in Crisis podcast. Today we have Garreth Murrell, the CEO of Veterans at Ease. Hi, Gareth, you all right?
I'm very well, Joe. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Thank you for coming on and to explain about your service.
No, pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem at all. So, I take it you're ex-forces yourself?
I am. I served 10 years with the Cheshire Regiment between 1985 and 1995. And I ended up, my last operational tour with them was Op Grapple 1, Bosnia, as acting platoon sergeant at Recce.
And how did you find it in the army? Oh, in fact, what made you want to join the army? Because I always ask that.
Great question. Yeah, I joined up basically to get out of Dodge City. My survival rate was higher, knowing I was going to go to places like Northern Ireland and the Falklands, etc., than it would have been if I'd have stayed in Manchester as a civilian. I'd have been dead within 2 or 3 years after the age of 16. So I joined up as a junior leader, went to Shorncliffe in Folkestone, joined the battalion when they came back from Hong Kong, and we were doing public duties at the time in catering.
I was a junior leader, like.
Oh, cool.
I was a junior leader in the light infantry. I think junior leaders went to Shorncliffe before we had our own barracks at Winchester Brook Barracks.
Yeah.
So was the light infantry and the Green Jackets there with you when you were there? Because I joined the 86.
All right, yeah. Basically, as far as I was aware, every infantry regiment in all the different divisions were based out of Shorncliffe for junior leaders. But the paras and the guards moved after 85. After we passed out in 85, they moved over to Purbright and Aldershot.
The light infantry must have moved because I think we were the first junior leaders to go into that new barracks in Winchester, and that was September 86.
Right. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, at the beginning, I was homesick. Yeah. You know, 16-year-old, you're not used to blokes shouting at you and giving you a clip and stuff like that. But I mean, after the first 6 weeks, then when you can sort of phone home and go home and stuff like that, I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. All the things like going out in the field and all that kind of stuff, I really enjoyed. I wasn't a lover of the polishing your boots, marching around sort of stuff, but horses for courses, isn't it? That's why I joined the light infantry, hoping you wouldn't have to march around anywhere. Like, or if you did march around, it was fast. It was faster than anyone else, you know.
Yeah, you guys ran everywhere.
So you joined in 85 as a junior leader. What was your experience of leaving home? I know you said obviously if you were in Manchester, then it'll been all about guns and drugs, was it?
The city itself, yeah. But I was doing it to get out of my home. So I was over the moon when I got as far away as I physically could in the UK from Manchester. And you can't get much more south than Folkestone without speaking French. So, yeah, no, I didn't miss home. I missed my mum and my sister, but I didn't miss the rest of the family.
All right.
I was determined to get through that year at junior leaders to then join the battalion. Because at the time, the battalion had been pulled out of Northern Ireland ops because of the Ballykelly bombing in 81. So they'd just done 2 years in Hong Kong. We were going to then do 2 years in Caterham doing public duties. But within that, we went to the Falklands and Belize, which was a phenomenal tour, Belize. Really enjoyed that. Then after that, we moved over to Chester because we were celebrating in 1989. The battalion was celebrating its 300th anniversary. We were getting a new set of colours from Prince Charles and all that carry on. And being in Chester, in the Cheshire Regiment, you know, we just went home every night. The camp was a ghost town unless you were on guard. So those were really good years, really good years. Quite formative for me.
Aye. And what made you, I know you just wanted to get away. Had you always wanted to join the army or be in the forces? Because what I ask everyone, it always seems to be everyone always wanted to do that. It's very rare that you get someone who says, I went in there because it was either that or can work at Tesco's or wherever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I'm one of them ones because my dad was an officer in the RAF and there was no way I was going to follow him. Not a chance. So as part of my rebellion, I think I joined the army as an infantryman, private. And it was about the only way I could rebel without getting myself murdered. And, but I always wanted to. No, not really. I was into a lot of mountaineering and climbing when I was younger. So it seemed like a natural progression for me to go into an organisation where they did a lot of outdoor stuff. And I was interested in small arms. I originally wanted to be an armourer. But my mate, who I trained with to get fit enough to do the BFTs down in, what was the
Sutton
place?
Coldfield?
Sutton Coldfield, yeah, that was the one. He got the last junior leader intake. So I just thought, well, I still like small arms and I like running around the mountains. Let's join the infantry. So coming from South Manchester on the border of Cheshire, the recruiting sergeant stuck me in the Cheshires.
It's crazy. Whoever whoever the recruiting sergeant is at the time, it's just a running theme. You just got into that, didn't you? Because I had no idea what I wanted to join. I just wanted to be in the infantry because I grew up like watching the Falklands War, things like that, and that's what I wanted all the time. And they just said, "Oh, light infantry," because he was in the light infantry, and I was like, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the Falklands because that's kind of what inspired me to move away from traditional things of jobs after school and head towards the infantry. Was that particular war? It's kind of like the last old school type war where there were two different uniforms and it was all done above board kind of thing.
And we weren't used to it either, being on TV. That was a big thing for me because my whole love or wanting to join the forces was the Iranian embassy, and that had never been seen before because we didn't have Sky or anything. So it was just amazing to watch that live. And then the Falklands, so that was me. That's all I wanted. Like, I mean, I didn't have a plan B, unfortunately, because I only stayed 5 years. But it's worked out all right as it is. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got to admit, I didn't have a plan B when I joined up. You got a choice of doing 3, 6, 9, or 12 years. I just went straight in for the 12.
Did you?
Yeah, straight away.
Well, I was more cautious. I said, I'll do the 3. But then, right, this shows you how immature I was. I signed for the 3, or thought I'd signed for the 3. And then when I was in Ireland, they said, "Oh, you're 18, you've got to come and sign for your 3 years." And I was like, no, there's a mistake. I signed when I was 16. So I can get out when I was 19. They're like, "No, it only starts when you're 18, mate." Always read the small print.
Absolutely, yeah.
So obviously once you join your battalion, it's completely different from training, isn't it? Completely different.
Totally, yeah.
And then for me, I went straight to Northern Ireland in Omagh, and that's what all I wanted in life was to go to Ireland. That's why I picked the 1st Battalion. That's why I joined the army. Because, like, in our age, the IRA were bombing the mainland, and that was my enemy. Really, in my mind, that was my enemy. And I'll be honest, it took us probably only about 8 years ago that I've stopped being resentful towards them, and I realised I've stopped the resentment, and I'm a much better person for it, and I'm better in myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would literally wake up in the morning, right, and hate Jerry Adams, right? And I don't know how it happened, but one day I thought, fucking Jerry Adams doesn't even know who I am. Why am I putting so much effort into it?
Good point. Really good point, yeah. And when you think of it in a perverse kind of way, if it wasn't for him and his cohort, we wouldn't have had a job.
No, exactly.
We'd have been sat in some crummy little barracks in Germany waiting for the Russians.
Well, I've got a couple of clients who actually served with, and we were discussing it, and we said, like, to be quite honest, now we're old and mature, to be quite honest, if I'd been born in Ireland, I would have been on that side,
Absolutely.
And that's a thing that I would have never even contemplated before, but I think it is maturity, and you think more about stuff, don't you, instead of being pig-headed. So I think, and getting rid of resentment out of your life is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, best thing that's ever happened.
Totally, yeah. Letting go that's something I work a lot on with the guys that we work with here in the charity. is helping them understand that it wasn't personal to the army and to the outside world. We're just numbers. You know, it's not like, oh, we're going to go out of our way to really have a good go, a good pop at Garreth Murrell because we know who he is. It's not like that. And it's helping them take that personal side away. And like you say, put their effort into something far more productive and beneficial to them.
Yeah. So something that you can actually make happen or change.
Yeah.
It's much better for you. The resentment, man. Honestly, I'm not lying to you. The day that happened, and I don't know how it happened, of just the reality of thinking that was best day ever. My life's completely changed since then, and like I say, it must be maturity or whatever that just came into my mind, thinking Jerry Adams doesn't know who I am, so why am I bothered about him?
Yeah, I'm really pleased for you because hopefully you can pass that on then to others.
That's what I try to do. All this whole thing's really off my own experiences. Because I was diagnosed in '94, with PTSD, and so all the things that I do, I just try to see what this has happened to me. I'm not telling you've got to do the same, but it's happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it. You know, a lot of years I dealt with it by drinking, taking drugs, and fighting at football matches. You know, obviously that wasn't the right thing to do, but at the time it felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you're right. It's about growing up. I mean, I set up the charity Veterans at Ease on exactly the same kind of things. I was never diagnosed, but looking back to my symptoms of flashbacks, paranoia, really, really short fuse, you know, overdoing the sauce. Of course, I had issues. My stuff mainly came from Bosnia. But once I realised it was me that needed to change, not the rest of the world, things got an awful lot easier very, very quickly. And if I can pass that on to one or two people, then brilliant. You know, I've done my job.
Mm. So when you were in Battalion, I asked this to everyone who comes on, what was your kind of, it doesn't have to be your favourite place or your favourite time, just like what's your sort of fondest memory and what was like kind of the worst thing that you did?
Wow. Okay. The fondest memory would have been the 4-year posting to Chester, because within that, I did 2 tours of the Falklands, which that's where my head switched from just being one of the blokes in the regiment to actually I'm going to start getting promoted here. I'm going to start getting fit and training. And I did selection for COP before we went to South Armagh. I got promoted to Lance Jack, 2 IC of a COP team, which I'm dead chuffed about. Really good tour as well, that was, from our perspective. And being so close to home and my civvy mates, you could just swap between going out on the lash with the guys from the platoon or just nipping out and go and see your mum or your mates or whatever. That was brilliant. I got a lot done in those 4 years personally and sorted my head out as to what kind of soldier I wanted to be. Like you, not really that bothered about being the smartest soldier on parade, but certainly more bothered about the field craft and being as good as I possibly could in the field. And for me anyway, going into recce was kind of the that step above a rifle company. Not thinking I was any better than them, just I had skills that were better suited for recce rather than just being a 2 IC of a section in a rifle platoon. The only time I've ever questioned my role or the role of the British Army was when we moved into Bosnia. It was phenomenal, you know. I mean, we had no idea. The only things we knew about what was going on in Bosnia pre-moving in was off CNN. Nobody had a clue. So when we went in, our remit was just huge. We had this brigadier come up to us about 4 days before we deployed. And he basically said, look, we don't have a clue what's going on. That's your job. Go out there, go on patrols, tell us what's happening. If we are needing to get aid to villages, tell us how many, and we'll try and organise that back in the UK and then get a convoy out. And that was all really well and good until they started killing each other. When we drove I was based in Gorny Vakuf, which eventually became the headquarters. But at the time, it was just one of the companies we were attached to. God, either A or B company, I can't remember. I think B company. And when we drove in, it was like we liberated a village in France on D-Day. You know, the whole town came out. Girls were throwing flowers up onto the decks of the vehicles. When we stopped, they'd jump up and kiss you. And I thought, blimey, you know, if this is going to be the next 6 months, I'm really going to enjoy this tour. 2 months later, they're killing each other, and they're doing it in the most grotesque ways. And because of our rules of engagement were so tight, you know, we thought things were tight in Northern Ireland, not compared to Bosnia. We were driving around in scimitars as recce, and we weren't allowed to shout up a contact unless the turret was being hit by small arms or blokes were taking rounds. If the hull of the body was, the main body of the vehicle was taking rounds, that wasn't a contact. It was crackers. So there was, we felt like we had our hands tied behind our back, not just one, but both. You know, and there was a few incidents that haunted me for decades, best part of 20 odd years, or 20 years, where we were on one patrol and we'd stopped, and we weren't tactical because we were UN, big white vehicles. Lights were on. Me and this other commander from another vehicle jumped out. We had the map spread on the deck of the vehicle, torches out. And you know, when you're at night, your torchlight is like kind of the only bit that you can see, and everything else is pitch black outside of that little circle. Well, we started noticing little flickers of light just outside of our vision on those circles. And when we turned the torches off and started looking, we noticed that how there were black figures running between houses, and they were setting fire to these houses. And when the women and children were coming out of the houses, they were shooting them. And then all the blokes were away fighting elsewhere. And because of the briefing we'd had from the brigadier a couple of weeks earlier about not getting involved and not starting an international incident, to stand there, and you know what the junior leader training was like for that 1 year, and the Northern Ireland training, it's about protection. It's about protecting those that were innocent. And in our world, those who were innocent are non-combatants. So to stand there and watch that really bothered me for a long time. So that was the only time I kind of questioned, why were we there? Let's let these people have their civil war, let them do what they need to do with each other. And once that's finished, once they've run out of energy, then build up the country that was left. Now, I get it's not as simplistic as that, but that was my viewpoint as a section commander and then acting platoon sergeant later on. Was, you know, and we were lucky, we only lost one bloke on that tour. Whereas the briefing, they told us to expect up to 30% casualties.
Wow.
So it was tough going in. We didn't know what we were getting into, and it was tough to deal with afterwards. I was talking to, and I'm trying to think of his name. He was an Irish Ranger officer who got a military crossing at Afghan, obviously years after Bosnia. And we were chatting about that. And he said, yeah, I know some blokes that we sent to you lot. He said, when you all came back, I don't know what Bosnia did to you, but all you guys wanted to do was fight. You just wanted to fight the world. You were a bunch of angry people. And I put that down to having that feeling of impotency. You know, I mean, I had access to, there was me, my two crew, we had a 30mm Radin cannon, a 7.62 coaxial machine gun, 3 assault rifles, grenades, as much ammunition as you could eat, and we couldn't use it when we first got there. It was just, why are we here, you know?
Do you still have nightmares and that about it now?
No. I'll tell you my story. My traumas actually came from the weather, more so than the actual fighting. That incident I told you about, that patrol, that bothered me for a long time. But the majority of it was the weather, because we were really inexperienced as a battalion with mechanised warfare. For the previous 8 years, we were foot soldiers, you know, the Falklands style thing. Put your burger on your back and go and tab to the battlefield. So when we took over from the Staffords in 1892, early 92, we had no experience with what tracked vehicles could do. And none of us really understood that when the snow comes down, tracked vehicles are about as much use as a chocolate fireguard, because when it snowed, you've been to Bosnia, have you?
Not with the army. I've been on holiday and I didn't kill anyone.
Beautiful country. Did you go in the winter or summer?
I went in May, and then I've just been to Croatia. I think that was August.
Right. So you'd have missed the snows then.
Yeah.
You may have got the back end in May. But when it snows out there, it'll snow 2 meters in one night. Not a problem. We used to dig our vehicles out on a daily basis, right up to the top of the turret. And I don't know if you remember all the news clips of Bosnia. You just had convoy after convoy after convoy. And what they would do is they would take that 2 meters of snow and compact it into about 9 inches of solid ice. And then you put a track vehicle on that, along with the mountains, the mountainsides that we were in. And what you've got is, because the tracks of a vehicle, the bit that's in contact with the road stop moving, they're stationary. So effectively, you have a footprint of 2 skis. Add in gravity, add in the roads with no Armco barrier or anything like that, and you lose control pretty quickly. And the platoon, we kind of lost 50% of our vehicles in 2 weeks. And the last vehicle slid off a bridge and ended up upside down in a river. And if it wasn't for the gunner elevating the gun as they were sliding off, it would have ended up upside down. They wouldn't have got out there to drown. But as it was, the gun just left enough of a lean on the vehicle for them to be able to escape. So after that, we developed SOPs as a platoon that if you were going to lose your vehicle, the commander would rip his helmet and headset off, jump out of the vehicle, drag a jerry can of petrol off the side of the vehicle, open it, run down the downhill side of the vehicle, pour the entire jerry can around the track of the vehicle and light it, and hope that there'd be enough heat to melt through the snow and provide some traction and some friction to stop the vehicle. And I did that 8 times. And and it wasn't just me that got bothered by that. My driver sat next to a 1,000-litre petrol tank. And these vehicles were built in the 50s, 50s and 60s. They're old vehicles. My gunner wasn't too best in pleased because he's seen flames lick up through the bottom of the hull into the turret where he sat with 230 rounds of 30mm ammunition, plus all the 7.62 and the phosphorus grenades and all the other stuff that we carried, the smoke and that. So it was scary in that respect, And every time back in the UK when it snowed, I would go and hide, and I would get very angry and very aggressive. And when it stopped, it would all come back to normal again. And I was lucky when I got out. I became a crime scene investigator for Thames Valley Police. So it's quite a flat area, so no hills and mountains, and it doesn't snow that often. But still, just the thought of going back on ops and the thought of going back out there in winter petrified me. It would terrify me into a state where I would just freeze. And for years, I just thought, that's the way it is. That's the way it's going to be. And then this paranoia came in where I started thinking that my colleagues were talking about me and my ability to maintain friendships was dropping massively. I divorced my wife I got married in 95. I was divorced by 2000. And so my ability to function in the world was dropping, but I was still doing a job. And it wasn't until I came up here in the Northeast as a CSI instructor that my world fell apart for the second time. And that really made me sit up and think, I have to change here. And I dropped into the NHS treatment, and that was the only time I'd been suicidal. I'd come out of a session thinking, I just want to step in front of a bus, because I was having to relive in moment by moment the traumas that I'd gone through on some of the experiences I was telling you about. And I challenged the therapist kind of halfway through the sessions. I said, look, you've got to do something with this stuff that's in my head because I can't shift it. And he said, well, you need to rationalize why you're like this and then it will all be okay. I said, well, hang on, let's rationalize it. 2 tours of Northern Ireland. One of the first lot into Bosnia. Saw loads of stuff I don't want to repeat to you right now. Yeah, I can rationalise why I'm feeling traumatised and alienated. Does that help? No. So it was, I finished the CBT therapy, the 12 sessions that I was given, and I came across somebody that I knew years before I'd done any operational tours. And we're chatting, having a coffee, and they said, flipping heck, Gareth, you haven't half changed. I said, well, 17 years? Who doesn't change in 17 years? And he said, well, yeah, but you're carrying a lot of baggage. You might think about wanting to put it down, kind of thing. And I said, well, I've just had CBT, and if that's the best the NHS can offer, I'm never going back there again because I will kill myself. It was awful. And he said, no, we've done this thing called NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. And bearing in mind, my head was still in a dark place. They started talking to me about it, and it sounded like a cult. You know, it's like, be the best you can be, and, you know, excellence is everything and all that kind of stuff. And they said, look, at the end of it, I can see you're not convinced, but I'm not confident or competent enough to work with you, but I think it will help you. But here's the card of the guy that's trained me. So give him a call. So I did, and we're on the phone for a couple of hours. And after the couple of hours, he says, yeah, I think I'll be able to help you. What you need to do is we'll book a session. You come down to Leeds, because that's where I work, and we'll start at about 8:30 in the morning, and we'll keep going till about 5 or 6 o'clock at night, until you're done. And I went, okay. And he went, oh, yeah, by the way, you need to bring £2,000 with you as well, because that's how much it's cost. And I said, you ever worked with a veteran before? And he went, nope. I said, I'll get back to you. And I was sat at home on my own, and on my coffee table, I was in tears. And on my coffee table was a mobile phone, my house key, and a razor blade. And the phone was there, so to pick the phone up, it was one of 3 decisions I was going to make. Pick the phone, make the appointment. I had a grip packed, ready by the front door. I was going to pick up my grip, walk out my house, lock the house up, post my key through my house, letterbox, and walk into Durham Hospital and sign myself in, because I really thought I was going insane. You know, it was just the worst I'd ever been, lowest. And the razor blade was, I had a bath run upstairs. I was going to get myself in the bath and slit my wrists. Luckily, I picked the phone up, made the appointment, and 2 weeks later, I went down, and in 5.5 hours, he cleared all of my military stuff, and I did not have to talk in detail about any of the traumas that I experienced in my life. It was coming back from Leeds that night. It was kind of like a Remington moment. You know, I was that impressed. I bought the company. I thought, hang on a minute. If this treatment is that powerful for veterans and that quick, why is it not being used as standard? So I got home and I put that out onto a few NLP forums in Canada and America and over here. And what came back, the general kind of answers that came back was, yeah, we know how powerful NLP is for dealing with trauma and really works well with veterans. But the first point is it's not recognised by NICE. So that's why you had to pay for it privately. And the second thing is they said, we're not veterans, so the guys won't walk through our door. Because you know yourself, there's that us and them feeling between military and civilian. And I just thought, well, hang on a minute. If I could go away and learn this NLP thing, whatever it is, but how do I get it to the guys who need it so they don't have to pay $2,000? I was lucky. I had a really good career where I had the resources to do that. And that's where the idea of a charity came. So I had that session in 2008. And I then started developing a business plan for a charity. And in 2010, I got the opportunity to take early voluntary redundancy. That was on the 22nd of September 2010. And on the 23rd, the charity came into existence. We got charity status the following March. And then I started my NLP training and then carried it further on for a further 4 years after that to become a qualified NLP psychotherapist. And we offer one-to-one bespoke NLP psychotherapy to veterans, serving personnel, emergency services, and more recently we've opened it up to the NHS as well because of COVID.
I was going to say that because of COVID.
Yeah, and that's it's going to be a bit like a bungee. It's stretching now, and it's going to take time before it recoils. So I think in 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a mass exodus for mental health services for the NHS who dealt with COVID. And we offer it for free. It's open-ended. There's no limit or minimum number or maximum number of sessions that people have, depending upon how chaotic or not the guys are. It may take 8-10 sessions. There was one guy I worked with just to get him stable enough, took 3 years. But once we got him stable, we went through the trauma process. We're currently part of a research project with King's and Belfast University. We did one session, 20 minutes, sorted out all of his stuff. So it's just the most remarkable, it's the most rewarding thing I've done, watching a guy walk in on his bootstraps, and 2, 3, 4 months down the line, he's either back together with his missus or got a new missus or he's got a new job, and he's, there's more about him again as it was pre-trauma, I suppose. And in the last 10 years, we've helped over 350 men and women deal with their stuff. And not everybody is suffering from PTSD. So anybody within our remit can come and access our services for free to deal with anything.
It's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's credit to you as well for sort of setting it up, from your own experience, which is brilliant. And I think you're exactly right about veterans don't really take to civvies. Me personally, when I had counselling or psychiatrists and that, they would say stuff like, "I know how you feel," and then you just know they don't know how you feel. They haven't been blew up, they haven't been shot. Just little things like that. They haven't got the empathy, they might say they have. And this isn't knocking the NHS or anybody who's in that type of business. But I feel personally that if you can say to someone, well, I was in that situation and this is how it's happened to me. So me setting Vix up was that whole point. So to work at Vix, you have to have been a client. So then you can show it works 2 ways. The clients can see you can progress to actually work there, but it also works in the way that when the worker says, I know how you feel, you actually believe that they do know how you feel.
Yeah, because it'll be true.
It is,
and it's that integrity that comes across. I think one of the things that makes the difference is the fact that we've walked where they've walked, and we've kind of sat where they've sat, gone through it ourselves, and come out the other side. And I think, hats off to you for setting up Vix, that you can say with hand on heart, look, I know exactly, I may not have walked on exactly the same ground, but I've worn that uniform. I know what it means to wear that uniform just to get in the uniform, but then to go on ops as well. I'm with you, brother or sister.
Well, I know when the idea when I first thought of the idea, and I thought of having all the things that I liked when I was in the army, because there was loads of things I didn't like. I fucking hated getting told what to do. I hated polishing my boots, all that sort of stuff. But I really liked the banter, the laughs you have. So I try to build that into everything that we do every day. So everyone's taking the piss out of each other all the time, constantly. Doesn't matter what's wrong with you. You know what I mean? People find something funny about it. What's wrong with you? And we're all outdoor stuff. So we're setting up a surfing thing. We do a lot of running, a lot of circuits, walking, anything to be outside. Because me personally, I think that makes you feel better.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting you say that. Sorry to interrupt you. Interesting you say that, because the people that I've got on my books at the moment that I'm working with, I've been working with for over a year now. And I believe that's because of COVID, because we can't socialise. Mm-hmm. Normally, 4/5 of them would have exited the therapy by now, because they'd have gone on and joined a club or be social somewhere else. Whereas at the minute they're using, because they're in this lockdown, they're using me as that social point as well. So it's referring them out to other groups will be superb.
It is. You know, getting people back into the banter and back into having a laugh. Because social isolation, people don't put it as high up as PTSD or other things, drug or alcohol problems, but I think personally, social isolation can be the sort of gateway for all of them things. You know, if you're stuck indoors, gives you loads of times to think bad thoughts, gives you time to drink, take drugs, you know, and it's horrible being socially isolated. And you can be socially isolated and live with someone. Because it happened to me, I had a really bad back and I was stuck in the house all day while she was at uni or work. So you didn't have anyone to speak to. You know, it's a horrible thing. So I relate to the clients when they come in and they're socially isolated. So what we try to do, especially now with COVID, we've been doing a lot of stuff with remotely. Yeah. Things like Zoom. I mean, I'd never even heard of Zoom before COVID. No, it's second nature, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's the way
it's great too. Like I kind of get around working Teams for some reason. Like Zoom, I just quite like.
Yeah, I mean it's a great tool, but I've got to admit that when we're allowed to go out and play again, I think I am going to go out. I like meeting people for coffee and you know, shaking the hand, and there's that side of it as well that I think we're gradually going to go back to.
Human interaction. Like actual human interaction, not through a screen, you can't beat it. You know that can change someone's mindset, like that.
Totally.
You know,
absolutely,
like that, because you just you can have a laugh and a bit of a joke and still do whatever you're doing. But you know, it's really weird. But these are the things we're learning from COVID, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's the things we're learning. Now, I'm not medically trained. You know, I've did some courses and that, but like I haven't got any qualifications. Like, not like you. You know what I mean? But all my stuff comes just from personal experiences and the experience of the clients that come in and tell us their experience.
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely.
And you know,
I mean, it's just that, you know, offer your hand and it means friend. Yeah. I'm your mate. And that we can't really do on this so much. And you don't get that. You get the banter. I think that icebreaker makes a difference.
It does. It does, mate. Yeah. So before we wrap up, is there anything you want to get out and any message you want to get out? I mean, what we'll do, I'll get an email off you with all your links and stuff like that so we can run it on the bottom and things like that. Was there anything you want to say before we pack it up?
Just that we're here, you know. Nobody needs to suffer from what they've experienced in the military or elsewhere. It doesn't matter. Nobody needs to suffer. And I know that from my personal experience. So get in touch with us, get in touch with yourselves. I don't care who people get in touch with, just get in touch with somebody if you are suffering. You don't need to do it, and certainly not alone.
Excellent, mate. Right, well, thank you for coming on, and hopefully by the end of April we'll be able to meet outside.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll take a trip and come and see you.
Yeah, definitely. Come along, man. Come along, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, cheers, pal.
Thanks,
Take care. Cheers,
you
man.
Too, Joe.